Okay, so there's now a tornado watch for my area, so things might progress quickly. Just get the big banner across all my phones. It's like, oh, this is going to be fun.
You're talking to a couple of Texas guys where tornado watch means get the beer in the lawn chairs.
Well, except for this one's centered on top of my county. Like, the spot where the tornado is supposed to be is like that, and my county is like that.
Cool.
So,
Let me see. Watch, that's the one where the tornado's been sighted, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, watch means conditions are good for it. Warning means it's been sighted.
Okay.
Oh, I heard my voice. Mine must be good.
Watch, that's the one where the tornado's been sighted, right?
Yeah.
Watch means conditions. It's really quiet, though.
Mine is?
Well, just in my headphones, anyway. Check 1, 2, level check. Yeah, that's weak. Let me crank. Testing 1, 2, testing 1, 2.
Mine is?
I don't want to blow it away. Well, just in my head.
Let me... Oh, Skype, I hate you.
Yeah, that's weak.
I hate you, Skype. I hate you.
Testing
I hate
1,
you.
2,
I hate you.
testing 1, 2. Ah, much better. I don't want to blow it away. Well, just
Every program sucks. Not only does every OS
Skype,
suck,
I
every
hate
browser
you.
sucks, every phone sucks, every program sucks.
Skype, I hate testing
1, 2. Oh, too much. Ah, much better. Blew it away. Okay.
There.
program
Now what are we
sucks.
doing?
Not only does every OS suck, every browser sucks, every phone sucks.
How about
every
that?
program
Are
sucks.
we good there? Is that too much?
Yeah, I'm not hearing a change to Skype at all.
Okay. Because
Okay.
my audio or Audacity settings shows me really blowing the top off of it, so let me back it out.
Chat room, not that anybody's going to be there. Hey, we're only 7 minutes late, so that's the same as being early.
Yeah. That's all right. That's better for my end. Is that better on your end, Mark, or is it no change?
No change at all.
Cool.
Skype is
How does that
auto-adjusting.
work?
I don't notice a difference.
No, my Audacity does. I'm not redlining anymore, so I'm going to call it a win.
Yay.
I was going to tell the chat room that the live stream's up, but only you and I are in the chat room, so...
Oh,
All right, I do need to turn this little fan off, though. You probably can't hear it, really, but I hear it. You'll probably hear it when it's gone, even though you couldn't hear it when it was there. You know what I mean?
no. I still can't hear it. Oh, my computer's fan's too loud. I barely hear anything over that with these headphones. All right. I am recording now.
Oh, I have just pressed record as well. Man, my hair was super, super long. I just got it cut Friday.
I am very much in need of a haircut. Starting to look like a beetle.
Yeah, I realized I was looking in the mirror, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought, how long has it been since I've had a haircut? I don't think it's been in a while. Might have been April, so it was very long.
Okay, why am I hearing...
You hearing little kids?
No, I'm hearing... Me. It's coming from Seth's line. Talk to me, Seth.
Okay, I can talk and ramble. I don't have a lot to say, though, so I might just repeat myself
All
and
right,
ramble
hold
and
it.
talk.
Okay, I did it. Turned one knob down, the other one up. Good as gold.
Woohoo!
Oh, I'm going to be sweating.
Go Knobs.
Gonna be
Knobs for the
sweating.
win. Knobs for the win.
Because my super genius idea generated dozens of degrees of heat. I'm so smart, I burned myself.
That sounds about normal.
All right, come on, Synergy. Why aren't you working?
Because you want it to work now.
No, that was just the first round of an experiment, Mark. You now have more data and will be able to construct a better experiment later. You're burning us with science. I was going to say blinding, but that didn't fit.
Right? Apparently Synergy isn't going to work. Is it running on this computer? Maybe that's the problem. There we go. I need settings. How do I... How do I tell it to start? And check scroll lock key. Oh, people actually use the scroll lock key? Amazing. The scroll lock key was keeping it from working.
You bumped it while
really?
you were moving.
Yeah. And in the server window it told me cursor is locked to screen. Check scroll lock key. I didn't know that thing actually did anything.
Not anymore, not since terminals stopped being a thing.
Oh, and you can lock it on any machine. So I've got it over on this third one, and scroll lock locks it there. I get it in the middle one, scroll lock locks it there. Huh. Pro tip. Didn't know.
Learn something new every day.
I wonder if there's an option you can go in and change it, and that's just the default setting.
Probably. Well, I don't know. Okay. Let's do this. Everything I need. See, everything's in the wrong place too. I deleted a computer I had running. I used to do 4. Now I'm only doing 3, and things aren't. I used to have one computer here, one here, and one here, and now they're all. That it's just.
First world problems.
All right. Check 1, 2. Give me an auto check, guys. Just make sure.
All right, and this is an echo check and audio check for Chris. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Right.
Apples and bologna.
Seth?
Check 3 4 3 4
right,
3
good.
4.
We are in fact recording. Okay.
Watermelon.
I'm excited. Let's do a
Wow.
show. Okay. 1,
We
2,
could call
3.
it the 4 minutes of crap we recorded before we started.
All right. Is everybody recording?
Oh, my.
Yes, I just checked it.
Awesome.
I am recording.
All right, let's do this thing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to GeekRant, episode 244. While we were out, recorded July 10th, 2016, and brought to you by Element OP Productions, elementop.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the only show on the internet where geeks rant. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me for the first time in nearly 2 months are your stalwart co-hosts, your friends and mine, Chris, the Command Line Godfather Neves, and Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Mark, Seth, long time no see. I hope everything's been good.
Hey, Chris, Mark, and everyone else of our lovely Element Opie-ites. Hope you are having one rocking summer.
All right, yeah, so we were gone for 6, 7 weeks, something, I think 6 weeks, yeah.
Yes.
And we brought you shows 5 of those 6 weeks. We did miss one due to a technical glitch. Somehow along the way, Seth's recording got lost on all 3 places that we recorded. Well, actually, just because it was a pre-recording, we weren't doing the Hangout, so I didn't have that backup. It didn't get recording on my end. It either didn't get recorded or got deleted on his end. So Chris and I talked about maybe doing a Guess What Seth Said show. And you had to listen to 3 minutes of silence and try to figure out what Seth said by our responses to it.
That's what I thought would have been really good. But what happened was that was the first show that we did in our recording, and so I put it in Dropbox. And some point, a couple of weeks later, I deleted it, and like about 2 days after that 30-day window mark said, "Hey Seth, it's not there," and I was like, "Crap, it's not there." Because the show from the week after we did that was in the deleted items, but it's that 30-day thing for the only free people. And so, yeah, sorry everyone. Either that, or you can thank me for giving you a week off of us. One of those two. I'm either sorry or in deserving of your gratitude.
It's not just free people. I pay for Dropbox, and I still only get 30 days. But still only get 30 days. 30 days is a lot, so I shouldn't complain too much. So we're back. We're glad to be back. I would say it was a great vacation, only it was not a vacation for me at all. I was moving. We bought a new house. I tried to do it. I didn't want to spend my friend capital. And by the way, if you're hearing a lot of room noise, hearing things that just doesn't sound normal, it's because I'm in a new space and I just barely had a chance to get everything set up. You're lucky we're here at all, frankly. I was working on this as early as today, getting it all set up, or as recently as today. So things aren't quite like they will be, but they're at least getting there. So but we didn't want to put you off another week. Actually, to be honest with you, it's been really nice not recording a show. I miss you guys and I miss doing it, but it was really nice having my Sunday nights. Honesty check. What do you guys? Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was cool not having to, but at the same token, it was bad missing one of the highlights of my week. So it was good and bad.
Yeah, so it was one of those things that we kind of said to ourselves, when we were done or when we left, like, if we figure out when we're all ready to come back that we don't want to come back, we'll know it's time for the show to end. But I missed doing the show. I hope you missed. Well, actually, you wouldn't have noticed, right? That was the way we tried to do it. If we went away for I truly wonder, if we went away for 6 weeks, how many people would actually care? I mean, several people would notice, but how many people would actually care? Or would it just be, 39 feeds in their podcast catcher instead of 40 now? I wonder.
Right.
Anyway. But we're back, whether you like it or not. We're back, and this is going to be a catch-up show. We're going to talk about some of the news that we missed while we were out, and also just some of the stuff that happened in our lives while we were out. So this is going to be a whole lot of talking about us. So that makes it different from every other show in no way at all.
Nope, not going to no change. Other than it looks like I'm blinded on this half of my face from the sun. God, yeah. Love Windows.
I did have, and he meant glass windows, not Microsoft windows.
Oh, I have one of those too, though.
That's awesome. I just got Chris on record as saying I love Windows.
I think you got that on a couple of times.
I think that's going to be my new ringtone. It's going to be. Actually, I do have for a long time I had a ringtone of Sean Keibel from the Taiwan Tech saying, I'm really loving my new MacBook Pro. And it was his ring when he called me. Every time he called me, it was him saying, I'm really loving my new MacBook Pro.
Yeah, you'll never hear me say that, though.
A good hardware, but still can't do the software.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to say it once they meet my price. So.
Free? Maybe.
No.
I'm considering. I've got an old PC down in the family room in the office area. That is, we're really close to a decade. It's old. It's got Windows Vista on it.
Ooh.
And the power supply fan is making that grinding noise like the bearing is going out. And 3 years ago, Seth, the weekend you came to visit me, if you'll recall, I was putting a new hard drive in it. I was spin writing it just enough to get enough life out of it so I could copy the stuff over. I'm just not sure how much I want to pump into this thing, so I'm trying to decide what to replace it with. So much of our lives now are online. I really don't need that computer anymore, except for my Plex media server. That's the only thing it really does anymore. That, and we use it, for kids to do homework and that sort of stuff. So what I'm considering doing is buying a server box, a NAS, something like that, to do servering, and put it down in the basement, and just throw a Chromebook on that desk, and just go with that. Because I'm just not sure I want to put any more money into this machine to keep it going, and I'm also not sure that we actually need a real computer anymore. Because all three of my kids have tablets. One of them has a phone. We have a dedicated homework laptop. That's the purpose of it. So there are times when two kids need to do something that can't be done on a tablet, a flash site. Education is one of the last bastions of flash in the world. So a second homework computer could be handy. So that's what I'm thinking. What do you guys think of that plan? Should I go Chromebook? Should I go cheap Windows box? Sadly, I kind of think I have to do Windows because so many things come home from school with Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Publisher, and you have to have something that. And I know that the Linux tools. I mean, I've used those to work around them, but not always to their satisfaction. Or a website that requires IE. Sorry, that was hard to say. So I'm kind of thinking I need Windows, but that we've got the homework laptop for that. So the Chromebook could probably do almost everything else. So I don't know. What do you think? Chromebook or cheap Windows machine or what?
What does your school use? Is the school your kids are not only going to, but the ones they'll move up into? Are they a Windows world, or have they seen the Chromebook light, or did some administrator go gaga over Apple junk? And then I would accordingly, do accordingly.
Yeah. So I don't know. They're all in new schools because we just moved, so I don't know. But in the previous county, I don't mean to speak ill of these people, but they were so incredibly backward in their technology. I mean, having come from a job where I was the guy that did that, I know what backward is, and they fit the category of supremely backward.
Right.
And I'm hoping that this new school is going to be better. They were still running, old like Windows XP. They literally had XP running on machines and had a few bring your own device labs where you were allowed to bring your stuff, but they didn't supply anything.
Wow.
It's not a poor school district at all. It was people mostly by rich kids, but the school just assumed that, maybe that's the problem because there were so many rich kids, they just assumed that the kids had better tech than the school.
That could be. That seems to be the current flow of things. So my vote would be for the Chromebook, especially now that the Chromebook, as long as it's one of the ones that's getting the Android makeover, I would think the Chromebook would be the best call.
We'll see. So that's my thought there. I do want to give a quick review on the two big kids movies that came out while we were going. Finding Dory and Secret Life of Pets. Finding Dory is better. Secret Life of Pets is fine. That's my review. Finding Dory is as good as Nemo was, and Nemo was really good. It's a little more slapsticky than Nemo was, like spoiler free. In Finding Nemo, one of the subplots was that this group of fish required Herculean effort and all worked together to get out of their tank and to get to the ocean. Right? It was a big thing. Finding Nemo, characters are going in and out of tanks and onto highways and whatever. So they've just sort of suspended that whole, oh, you mean fish have to stay in tanks thing. They just completely eliminated that.
Interesting.
And to the point where one of the major characters operates a piece of heavy equipment. I won't go any farther than that. But so just having a very different tone than that. And also, it was, if you're paying attention to it, there's enough slapstick and kid jokes that you don't get it. But if you're paying attention to it, it is gut-wrenching. The whole movie is about the horror that brain damage brought on Dory's life. And if you're paying attention to that subplot, it's like cry-worthy, but it's wrapped in clownfish.
All right. Well, I can't wait to actually watch it. I know my kids watched it and they actually really liked it. So,
Secret Life of Pets is just puns and goofy jokes, and it's fine. It's well done. But every time I see a DreamWorks movie, I'm reminded of how they're not Pixar. There's a scene where a dog goes in and out of water several times, and the water doesn't follow him. When he's in the water, he's wet. When he comes out of the water, he's dry because it takes too much effort to animate wet fur. And it's just little things like that where Pixar will spend an extra year on the details. DreamWorks just cranks it out for the money.
Sure. Interesting.
Right.
So that's all I got to say about that. Chris, you have been talking about the whole D&D thing for a while, so
Yep.
you're now D&Ding again.
Yes, I am D&Ding again. We actually have a monthly rotation now. But running a group, because I'm the game master, a dungeon master, for 14 people is difficult. Difficult in the monumental way of I have to try and usher these people to a common thought process. And when you have ages between the youngest one is 7 and the oldest one is like 30, it's a very interesting process to keep all the people on the same page.
Wish I could offer some salient
Yeah,
commentary on that, but I got nothing.
Yeah, it's just the way the thing is. Most gaming groups are 6 people, and that still is a monumental task to keep 6 people going on the same roll. So, doubling that and then, yeah, it's a mess. But so far, after 2 nights, 2 nights of sessions with me, everyone's having fun and no one's died. So that's a good sign, right?
Well, no characters have died, or no people have died?
Other than the bad, no people have died, obviously enough, but no characters have died. There was a couple that were close. Last week, the last session was a lesson for one of the kids that were playing that it's not a video game. There are no health potions, and if you run off by yourself, chances are you're not going to come back. And
so what do you do then? You just roll another character, or you're out forever? How does that work?
It depends. Some groups I was a part of where if you rolled, he actually the last DM that did this, you would roll up 3 characters at once, and if your first character passed, then you would move to your second character or your third character, and then if you continue to, you would keep dying, you would keep rolling new characters, and he would bring them in. It makes a lot of work for the guy running it because then he has to find a way for your character to come to the group, but it's you could be permanent dead and then never play in the game again until we start over.
Which seems like a whole lot of not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have 15 people, you might draft one of them and make them like a recurring NPC or the bad guy that they have to kill. So that way you have a little less of a group to herd, and having that one person to go against would kind of naturally focus the rest of the group. It's just a thought.
I've thought about doing that, but it adds a layer of complexity that would kill the group's dynamic.
Oh, okay.
So, because then that one person would be the quote-unquote bad guy, and there's a lot of times where people take things personal, and I just don't want to have that layer of, watching a friendship get destroyed because they're taking a personal comment that was made in-game personally out of game. But I have heard of people doing that, and it does sound like an interesting play. It's just not something I want to try, especially with the age groups. If we were all closer to the adults, it'd be a different story. But when you have 4 children, you kind of have to be a little careful about what you do.
Yep.
Are you guys done now?
Sure.
This must be how my wife feels when I talk about football.
No, that's how I felt whenever y'all talked about Plex.
Yes, there we go.
What's wrong with Plex? I love my Plex.
Yeah, I do want to. Speaking of Plex, with this move, I've officially become a cord cutter. I've been using Dish Network for 15 years. Literally, like the day, 14 years and 364 days. When I called them up to cancel my service, the guy was like, "You know that tomorrow will be your 15-year anniversary, right?" I don't care. He was like, "What's the problem? Is it costing too much? Is it?" And I didn't want to have that conversation with him because he was going to offer me some for 10 months. We'll knock it off by 50%. No, I want it to be gone forever.
Yep.
So I just told him, this is a line that worked for me, guys. If you're trying to cut a service, just tell them my family has decided we're not going to watch TV anymore. When you make it like a moral decision like that, they got nothing. They transfer you to a customer retention expert. His whole job is to make sure you don't quit. Mm-hmm. So once he realizes that you're going to quit, he's done. He's like, all right, fine, you're disconnected. Bye.
Yep.
He was done with me.
I had a very similar experience when I did my cord cutting. which was interesting because they asked, well, how much during the whole exit interview thing that they're doing, he asked, well, how much TV do you actually watch in a week? And I could literally on the phone, straight faced, I go, well, maybe 15 minutes. I'm watching TV. And he goes, well, what about the rest of it? What, you have kids? I go, yeah. And
Netflix.
They watch about 15 minutes of TV because they're on Netflix and my home media server, Plex, and they just don't watch TV. Even when they go to their grandparents, they don't watch TV there either. My son will pre-download stuff out of Plex to watch at his grandmother's house when he's not doing anything. It's totally comical.
So at some point in the future, I plan to do a full show about how to cut the cord, my cord cutting experience. I'm only a month into it right now, so I don't feel that I have, a lot of wisdom to offer. But I will say we're not missing anything. A lot of the convenience is gone, right? Dish Network, DirecTV, Comcast. These guys have had decades to mature their product. The cord cutting people, they're all relatively new. I mean, you go back, Netflix is probably the oldest of the bunch at about 10 years old. Probably not even 10, 7 or 8. So it's obvious almost every day that I'm not dealing with a mature environment. Things are harder to do. Takes more steps to do less work. That sort of thing. But we're not missing anything in terms of content, and we're paying about just under half. I did bump up my bandwidth in anticipation of it, and as I mentioned before, I have to be Xfinity again. I hate Xfinity. I hate Comcast, but nobody else services this house, so I had to go back to it. And I've been reintroduced to the world of caps, data caps. Mm-hmm. So we have a terabyte cap now. They just recently moved that from 300 megabits. Like the week before we moved in, it was 300 megabits, and then they made a thing and said now it's a terabyte. Well, we're 10 days into the month, and I'm at 220 gigabytes now. So the 300 meg limit would have just really blown me away. But I'm eyeing that terabyte. I'm not sure we're going to be able to stay under that. And then it's like $50 a gig to go over. I mean, it's really expensive to go over.
Welcome to my everyday. Right.
So at that point, I'll be QoSing some things. And one of the things I've been having to tell my kids is, because it's different for them, don't walk away from the Roku and just, when you're not watching it. Don't just walk away. And don't just turn off the TV and walk away. Because I came home one day and, Disney Channel had been streaming for who knows how long. Streaming 1080p full high def. Nobody's in the room. The TV's not even on. And so that's been some retraining. And I have the fancy Harmony remote. I was able to tell it when the TV turns off, turn the Roku off too. Go ahead and do that.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I had a very similar talk with both my daughter and my son, who are notorious for that.
Yeah. So it's a whole new world, and it may be, I have not ruled out the possibility of going back if it's a less enough of an experience. That's not the word. That's not even the right way to say it. But if the experience is poor enough as compared to what we had, I'm not opposed to going back. It's not some moral thing. But I was paying $120 a month every month for Dish Network, on top of my Netflix and my cable and my Google Play and my Amazon Prime. So I was already paying $120 a month on top of everything. So now I've bumped up my bandwidth, which cost me a little more, and then cut all the other stuff out. And I've stuck an antenna up in the attic, and I got 51 channels. 40 of them are stuff I don't want to watch, but that's the way it was with Dish. I got 200 channels, 190 of them were stuff I didn't want to watch. So there's really no difference there.
Yeah, so far the only thing I really feel when it comes to cutting the cord is football. That's the one thing that I have a hard time with, because the only way I've been able to find it, because there is no over-the-air HD over here, and amongst the tumbleweeds, so we have to pay for it, and that's a pretty hefty penny every year to pay for Sunday Ticket.
Right, it is.
but I was paying for it anyway. So
I'm not saying that that this is something that I'm not recommending that you do this, but I've heard tell of a plugin for XBMC called Sports Devil that you might want to check. I'm just saying if somebody were so inclined as to want to find professional sports that are not available in your market, Sports Devil is a thing I've heard of.
Ah.
And I'll just leave it at that. So Seth, welcome back. We vamped so long that nobody even knew you were gone. Do you have any interesting while we were away stuff to talk about? We have a whole section in the notes later of stuff we missed, but this is just other stuff. There's nothing here in your color. We need something in your color. Oh, okay, made me sad. All right, so let's jump on to a couple of mini rants, a couple of bits of feedback from our listeners. John says thanks. We like people who say thanks. Says, I'm John from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a 60-year-old geek who likes to rant, but today I'm writing to say thanks for all the cool tips and tricks. First, I would like to say thanks to Seth for turning me on to goatslive.com. I've become part of their community and now love watching, chatting, and remotely controlling the cams when I can. Goats Live also has a blog called Observations from a Linux-Powered Goat Farm at lnxgoat.com. Chris, all your shtick is too cool. Keep up the great work. Mark, I just found this website that I thought you might get a kick out of, Flybricks. And he's got a couple of links there. Flybricks, it is really cool. It is drones, RC quadcopters made out of Lego bricks. So there's a couple of custom Lego bricks that are mounts for motors and stuff. And so you make your RC out of Legos. And I'm really going to check that out because they break like Legos. So, might as well do that. I have had no time to fly my quad, but I have been scouting every time I go, because we're in a new area now. We don't really know where everything is. Anytime I'm driving down the road, I'm like, oh, that's a big open field. That's a good spot to fly. Oh, look, right there by that school. That's good. There's that baseball field. I can use that. So I've been keeping an eye. I've been missing it, but I haven't had a chance to do any of that sort of stuff. And he says, sorry for being so slow on that sudo command. Just been busy and a little bit behind on my podcast. Thanks from an old man, John in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, John.
So, Seth, you brought that as sort of a joke, and John has found a new passion out of it. So just that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. John, you've taken it a lot further than I have.
Yeah, we just sort of mocked it for a few minutes and moved on.
I would periodically check in and look, but yeah, not like you. So, way to go, John. Glad we could help you broaden your internet horizons.
And Seth, you're a goat guy. You have goats around the property, and you hang out with them. So, there's a bit of a kindred spirit there.
Yeah. Well, we're currently down to one goat. The rest have gotten out, and stuff gets them, or stuff gets in, and stuff gets them. And then I walk around, patch up the holes. They get out. I patch up the other holes, and eventually I find all the holes they were getting at. But we're down to one, and he still gets out all the time. So, bummer.
Yeah, the problem is if you tie a goat to a tree, a T-Rex shows up. So you can't ever tie a goat to a tree. If Michael Crichton has taught us nothing, he taught us that.
Right. Well, that only happens when we're not looking. So if I were to put a camera on the goat and he were in view all the time, he would be safe. But if there were ever a power outage, then I could be in real trouble.
That's sort of an inside joke among my wife and one of her best friends is that the moral of all of Jurassic Park is don't ever tie a goat to a tree, because it all started when they tied the goat to a tree. If they just hadn't done that, wouldn't have been any problem.
They would have been safe.
Yep.
All right, Scott says, back up, people. Thanks, guys, for the replay of EDL number 84 as GeekRant number 242. After losing most of my stuff a few years ago, I've been backing up everything religiously until recently, when I've kind of flaked off. Now it's back to it. Looking forward to your return. I was going to say from vacation, but it probably wasn't much of a vacation, at least not for you, Mark. Hope the move went well. Regards, Scott from Emeryville, CA. That's California, not Canada.
Oh, come on. Canada's not that bad. No, yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I've actually been handing out that episode for people to get notice on how to back up, because it's such a good one.
And I haven't done it yet. So since then, I don't really use backup PC anymore because, as I said at the time, it was an enterprise thing. but also I do everything in the cloud now. Google and Dropbox are my backup, so I don't really have much of a need for it. Carbonite on the one PC down there in the living room. So I don't really use it, but I've been considering just setting up a Pi with a backup PC on it, just because I don't even know what I'd pull anything off of. Because everything I already have, I'd be pulling something from the cloud, pretty much, to put it on there. Yeah. But just to keep my feet in the water, so to speak.
Because it's such a great thing to do. It's amazing the things that go away when you're not using it every day.
Yeah, that's true. Like how to do a podcast, for example. I've lost those skills over the last 6 weeks. I do want to. Seth has got some news links, and we'll probably get to one or two of those. But I did want to talk about some of the things that we missed, things that I would have commented on had we been here, and that sort of stuff. So, for example, Ethereum. Have you heard of Ethereum? While we were gone, Ethereum is an alternative to Bitcoin. It's another digital currency, and it was kind of under the radar. Nobody ever heard of it, and then it kind of became a thing. And it's like, I was seeing news articles all over the place. And the Ethereum is the new Bitcoin. It's more secure. It's better. It's safer. It's all the way around. You should sell your Bitcoin and move to Ethereum. In fact, some of the early Bitcoin guys were actually posting things to that side saying, Bitcoin is dead. Long live Ethereum. And then somebody stole pretty much all of Ethereum. There was a blockchain hack, and so Ethereum came and went while we were away. Did you guys follow any of that at all?
No.
No, just me?
It popped up on my Google Now once because of all the Bitcoin searching I do. But so it popped up on Google Now, and then it just, as quickly as I read the story, it disappeared off of my Google Now, and I haven't seen it since. So it's like, oh, that was a thing. Okay.
Yeah, no, it came and went, and I didn't notice. So.
Yeah, so I'm super.
It happened.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, I found, I was searching for it because I was like, Ethereum, what's that? I got to read about it before the show starts. And then I found this one article where they're like doing a hard fork maybe to try to go back in time before the blockchain hijack and everybody gets their stuff back, maybe. But then I never saw what happened after that.
Well, that's the current state. That's where they are right now. But basically, with super simple, I always get excoriated for simplifying things. But a guy found a predictability in the Ethereum algorithm. That's the simplest way to put it. There was something that was not as random as he thought it could be. So he was able to go through and essentially pwn like 40% of the total wealth of Ethereum. I mean, that's big.
Wow.
It was in the millions of dollars. And they went back and they, after the news thing, the guys, the consortium that runs it, went back and invalidated all that stuff and said, look, it's all over now. And then he came back and re-invalidated their invalidation. So as far as I'm concerned, they have no credibility in my book. They're completely shot because they were pwned by the same guy twice. And
yeah, that's pretty much a game over.
I mean, even if the guy is your developer, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like Satoshi Nakamura on the Bitcoin side, whoever he or they is, if the math is done right, shouldn't be able to do that. Even the guy who invented it shouldn't be able to do that. And the fact that somebody could, not only once but twice, tells me that they're on an unstable platform. This hard fork that they're talking about, they're forking off something that was broken twice in a short order. In the 6 weeks we were gone, they were broken twice. So that's not a fork. That's a burn down and rebuild.
Yep. Kill it with fire and start over.
But see, let me do a quick search there. Ethereum price currently right now, the Ethereum price is at, really thought I'd have it up by then, $10 per Ethereum, which or ETH, I forget what the coin is. But it's at $10, where Bitcoin, last I looked, is over $600. So if they're gonna fix it, right now's the time to get in. You're buying early. I've kicked myself for not buying Bitcoin when it was at $1 per Bitcoin, but I didn't. So I bought Bitcoin at $200 per Bitcoin, and now it's gone up to, let me look, live right there. uBlock Origin has blocked the page. Really?
Oh, uBlock's
because
doing
Google
its
Ad
job.
Services. So 652.44 is what it is right now. So we've come a long way from the 200 that I bought at just in February when we did our financial February show. So, but as I said then, you don't want your currency to be a speculation. It's either currency or a speculative item. It's not a good idea if it's both. Although there are people that speculate on the dollar too, but not with 300% gains or losses in a couple of months.
Right.
So there we go. Ethereum was a thing. Brexit.
Yep.
Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, it's
Just
still-
me, apparently.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, it was a big thing, at least for the few minutes that I was reading about it, when my friends over there were saying, "Are you kidding me?" And then it, as far as I know, it reverted, didn't it?
Well, it's been ignored,
No.
pretty much.
Okay.
Go ahead, Seth.
Well, they voted to leave. They've got to figure out how, because it's never been done before. When the EU was created, I don't remember the article number, but it was specifically put in there to allow people the chance to opt out at a later date. And so Britain said, hey, we want to opt out, and everybody's going, oh crap, how do we do that?
Right.
And so it's going to take a while for them to officially leave. Basically, they gave their 2 years notice of their intent to leave. It could be undone at a later date. One thing that I think would be bad is if Great Britain were dissolved over this, because you have like Scotland and Northern Ireland, because Scotland recently came very close to leaving Great Britain. They that referendum on Scottish independence barely failed, but they're saying they want to stay in the EU, and Northern Ireland wants to stay in the EU. So Great Britain could be England and Wales. That would be all that would be left at that point. So it's one of those. It's opened a whole can of worms. Whenever it happened, it was so nobody was expecting it, and so all the markets took a big hit. I don't know. I kind of think it's cool that they decided to leave, because if being in the EU was that bad, sometimes you have more influence over a body politic once you pull out of it than you can have from within it. So, maybe they can pull out of it, or they're threatening to pull out of it, will help clean up the EU's act. I'm not a big European political guy, so I don't know the ins and outs of EU politics, but just because they voted to leave now, they could always vote to change that later. And there's a lot of people who heard that, oh, this is going to fail, I'm not going to bother to vote. And so, maybe it wouldn't have failed if everybody had voted. So votes still matter sometimes.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another. And an Englishman wrote that.
Those darn Englishmen.
As I understand it, and I'm not at all an expert on British law, but I heard a British guy say this. I heard an Englishman say this on another podcast, that those referendums, it's something, I don't know about unique, but certainly unusual to UK. We don't have anything like that in America, where anybody can put a referendum out. So an individual person can put it out for a vote. So we have something at the White House, the White House petition something or other, but it's completely non-binding there. The agreement is if it gets a certain number of things, the White House will look at it. The way I understand it here is that any citizen of the UK can put something on the referendum, and all of the UK can vote on it. But I believe it is also relatively non-binding, that they don't have to do what it says. But when 70% of your population votes on something, it's obviously important. Now, it passed 52 to 48. It was a very narrow margin, but they had a 70% voter turnout. What gets a 70% voter turnout ever? So obviously this is something
in American politics.
Yeah, this is something for politicians to pay attention to. And their current prime minister just resigned, said, no, I ain't touching this third rail. I'm done. So
Wow.
now they're in the process of doing a whole new prime minister who's going to be stuck with this Brexit thing. Do I do it? Do I not? Do I tick off 52% of my population? What politician wants to tick off 52% of his population? Nobody. So it's a political hot potato, but it definitely, I think, as you pointed out, Seth, it illustrates some serious discontent among the British populace. And that's something you got to address.
It'll be interesting to see what all happens after the fact now that this has all been done. If it actually ends up becoming yep, we're done, see ya, what's that going to do to the global market that we are currently using?
Yeah. Well, because Britain was one of the stronger nations of the EU, and so if one of the stronger economic entities pulled out, then all of a sudden the entire union becomes weaker because, well, look, they only lost one member, and there's lots of countries that have a larger population, but when that one member was the richest guy, or one of the richer guys, true, you only lost 1/15 or however many there are, but you might have lost 1/8 of the wealth. So, and that's a big hit because you have, if you follow the news at all, Greece is always one drachma away from defaulting on billions of pennies, I guess, by our currency. And then, Spain and Italy and Portugal, they're ready to all of a sudden become insolvent. So you have a lot of people in the EU teetering on the brink of economic collapse. And if the rich guys leave, then, what's left for the others? So that it could be a very big deal. But like I say, maybe it will force the EU to address some of the underlying weaknesses, and it could be better for everybody in the long run.
Yeah, what is it that makes...
Or, if you're ultra...
Go ahead, Seth.
If you're ultra paranoid, this could just be, bring us one step closer to the mark of the beast and the end of the world. So...
you have to ask the question, what is it that makes so many people so unhappy? And was this just a bunch of people who said, burn the place down! And then when it passed, they went, oh, wait, you're going to burn the place down?
I was just kidding.
Yeah, I didn't mean that. Can we go back? So, we just don't know. But it is definitely interesting to see where they go. And, my Texas friends, every few years, Texas talks about seceding from the Union. And so there was, after this, a Texit movement. They came out, Texas exiting from the Union. But there's a significant difference here, and that is that when Texas rejoined the Union after the Civil War, they signed an agreement that said exiting constitutes an immediate act of war against the U.S. That's different than the EU. So
Ouch.
While Texas has something like 30%, I made that number up, don't quote me on it, but somewhere around 30% of all active military are there. Those active military are sworn to serve the Constitution of the United States, not Texas. So it's a big deal. So basically, what would happen is the Texas governor declares the intent to secede, and 30% of the population of the U.S. military would show up at his door and say, because they're all right there. So Texas people, just back off. It ain't happening. We agreed.
Well,
pretty quick.
Yeah, and while Texas is one of the larger states, and it does contribute to, it puts more into the government financially than the federal government pays out. Imagine having to go it on your own. Then you have currency, you have state and federal obligations and ambassadors and everything, and it just becomes an unsupportable mess. So while in theory it would be good to leave the U.S., all of a sudden my U.S. dollars would be worthless. So, and I don't think I would want that.
Yeah, not a good idea. Not going to happen. Cool it, Texans. You're not as cool as you think you are. And I say that as a Texan. Knock it off. Also, while we were gone, we pretty much know who our political candidates are going to be. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have clinched, to use a sports term. They've gotten all the delegates they need, though there have not been any conventions yet. So what's interesting about that is that the delegates, once they get to the convention floor, are empowered to vote however they want. They're supposed to throw their votes to whoever their state went for or whatever, but the individual delegates themselves have the right to not do that. And there have been some people throwing around some blustering about, I won't vote for Trump or I won't vote for Hillary. I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think Trump and Hillary are the nominees. And it really is, in my case, as I was talking about in a previous episode, we've gotten what we deserve. When these two people are our candidates, we got nobody to blame but the American populace. This was our version of burn the whole thing down. Oh, wait, really? I didn't mean that. I think Trump started out as a joke, and now he's going to be a presidential candidate. And, that's my thoughts on it. What do you guys think?
I think it's now we get to look at which poison do we want to drink as a country, because either one I think is a poison.
I think there's a chance that Trump could be a non-crappy president.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think, but if you're weighing the two of them objectively, most people, and we've covered this territory, most people vote on 4 issues, and the guy who agrees with them on those 4 issues, they vote for. But if you look at more objectively as leadership experience, for example, Hillary wins that. She's been in politics for 2 decades. She knows how to be a politician. If that's what you want in a president, somebody who knows to be a politician. Personally, I don't want a politician to be president. I think that's the problem. We've elected too many politician presidents. But Trump is a guy who has shown the ability to make and lose a lot of money, but he hasn't really shown the ability to lead at all. So if your thing is leadership, you got to go Hillary on that. But Hillary, you can't get more establishment than Hillary. You just can't. There's no such thing as a more establishment candidate than Hillary. So if your thing is anti-establishment, you got to go Trump. So it really all depends on what your one big issue is.
Right.
Uh,
And that's what this is going to come down to.
I saw a Facebook post that says, let's not vote for a president in 2016. We should be single and take a few years to rediscover ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I like it.
I can't think of many scenarios where either one is not a disaster for this country. And the sad part is either one of them are the disaster we deserve because of the crap we've done as Americans. And it's not those filthy Democrats or those ugly Republicans. It's us Americans have chosen to destroy our country because we all want to take our little piece of it, demand everybody give us our little piece, but at the same time not allow anybody else to have their little piece. Nothing's going to happen like that. It's a very sad. I mean, looking at the political landscape heading into the election really kind of makes me sad to be an American.
I agree completely.
Sorry.
I mean, that's
Go team.
Go Team America. And we're rehashing old territory here. I can only hope that this is the wake-up moment where the world looks up and says, really? This is what we got, not the world, but America looks at it and says, this is what we got ourselves into? We need to take this more seriously next time.
Yeah.
I would like to believe that. I don't think it really is. I think he's going to have to be, he or she, whichever it is, I think that president would have to be like worse than Carter. We would have to have 60% unemployment and inflation through the roof, and for America to wake up. If they just keep doing little things like taking away civil liberties, well, that doesn't mean anything. As long as I got my Game Boy, I'm fine. If all they're doing is taking away rights, well, that doesn't mean anything. I've still got an iPhone. It's going to have to be misery for years for the American people to wake up. As long as they're still relatively happy, then I don't think it's going to matter. And that moves into this next thing. We're hitting a point right now where mortgage rates Maybe not the lowest in history, but darn close to it. 3% down, 3% interest rates. Are you kidding me? That's unheard of. And if you're a buyer, that's great, right? It means I can now buy a house at 3% down. I can buy a $100,000 house and put down $3,000. That's less than a down payment than most people put on a car. So I can buy a house with a 3% down payment. And so they're looking at that thing. That's a good thing. Me, as an amateur economist, I look at that and I am scared to death of that. That is a harbinger of doom. When the mortgage rate is 3% down, 3% interest. That's terrible.
We went back in time 15 years, and what happened 9 years ago? It's, I don't know. It is so. Here's what we need to do. We need to bribe Anonymous to crash Facebook on like September 15th and just crash Facebook and not allow it to work until November 5th. That would piss Americans off more than anything, except possibly blowing up a football stadium on Sunday. Either that or taking away. If we could get both of those things to happen, then we'd have a pissed off country willing to change and do something to fix the crappy situation we've gotten ourselves into. But outside of those two things, I don't know. You can. It's just like I say. It's a sad and depressing time to be an American. I guess I don't know. Sorry, I'm in a bad mood today.
You're awful downer today, Seth. What's new?
I'm all for lowering interest rates and lowering the barrier. I bought this house because interest rates were lower than I've seen them in my adult life. My previous house, the one I bought in 1999, I got a 6 3/4% interest rate, and I stole that. That was
that was awesome.
That was champagne and caviar times right there. 6 3/4% interest was the lowest interest rate anybody had ever heard of. And now I got this one for under 4. It was 3.7, I think it was, something like that. Ridiculous. Wow. And at that point, think about it. Banks, they're not making any money on the interest anymore. So what are they making money on? They're making money on fees, on foreclosures, on people failing. They are loaning you money hoping that you can't pay it back. Because the last time a large group of people didn't pay it back, what happened? The banks were handed tons of money.
Bail out.
So if I'm a banker and I'm thinking I can work hard for 3%, or I can do a bunch of junk loans and get a few billion from the government, what's the better thing for my stockholders? That's a twisted view, but when you're the CEO of a publicly held company, your primary responsibility is to the stockholders, not to your customers. Your customers come far below your stockholders. Most people don't realize that, but if you're a good businessman, you realize that your customer is how you make your stockholders happy. But
right,
I'm not sure that we have that many good businessmen anymore.
Nope,
not anymore.
I'm a very upbeat, positive guy, but I got to tell you, I'm scared of what 2020 and beyond is going to bring us. I really am. It's going to take that long. It's going to take 4 or 5 years for us to start seeing the effect of what's happening now.
Yeah.
But it's a scary time if you are a student of history.
Yep.
All right, and this one thing, I'm not going to give it a lot of time, but it's current as in the news right now. A guy shot some cops in Dallas. This has been turned into a black or white thing. This has been turned into a dirty cop thing. This has been turned into all sorts of things. I just want to say this is a guy who shot some cops. Anything else is media spin and trying to usurp a terrible event for your agenda. This is a guy, and if you want to talk about disaffected blacks or whatever, let's talk about the fact that the city of Dallas has a black chief of police. Up until the previous mayor was a black mayor, I think. I believe the current mayor is white. Most of the city council, more than half of it, is black. I've been out of Dallas for a while, but I'm pretty sure these numbers are recent true. If you want to talk about disenfranchised black, Dallas is not where to look. So don't go there, media. Don't go there, podcast listener. That's not what this was about. This was about a guy who was sick and wanted to hurt some people. All right? This wasn't a gun problem. This wasn't an open carry problem. It was too easy to get guns. No, this guy had been vetted in every way that people can be vetted. He served our government in the military. He was just twisted and decided to kill people. And don't read anything more into it than that. Seth, you were going to say?
No, that's totally, I mean, you're so right. People are twisting it. You know, it's like this and the Orlando thing, which also happened while we were gone. He was vetted as a security professional, and he wasn't even using an AR-15, and that's what received the blame for the whole thing. And it's like nobody cares about the truth. There was a time for about 30 minutes after it happened where people cared about what happened. After that, nobody cares about that anymore. What does this group of people say about it? What does that group of people say about it? Where's the political capital going to be spent here? What group can we target here? Nobody cares that in Dallas, Texas, police officers were shot, and while they were being shot at, they were attempting to protect the bystanders who, ran to them for cover. So let's not forget that. Let's focus on what is important and quit the crap. And then that would fix a lot of the problems in our society.
I have nothing more to add to it.
Yeah.
Other than it was a horrible thing and I wish it wouldn't have happened.
There was a time when the news people were called reporters. What they did was reported, this is happening right now. I'm standing here and this is happening. Somewhere around the early 70s, Woodward and Bernstein turned them from being reporters to being journalists. Now we have a story to tell. We're no longer reporting the news. We're telling a story.
They're spinning it. Yep, they're spinning stories.
And when you're telling a story, the narrative matters more than the events. I really want our world to go back to a time when the events mattered more than the narrative. What are the events? Construct a narrative from that. Don't craft a narrative and then cherry pick events. And this hurts me as a lover of truth to see that facts as true things are being distorted to tell a false story. And when you attack these people, they say, "Look, everything I've said is true." Yes, that is true. You have become a wizard at telling a false story using true statements. What do we call those people? We call them liars. That's what we call those people.
Politicians?
Yeah. When my children use true things to tell a false story, they get double the punishment. One for breaking the dish and the other for lying about it.
Yep.
Because that's a lie. The sum of the story is more important than the facts that make it up. And what this world needs is fewer journalists and more reporters.
Can't say it any better than that.
Man, this is a great show we're having.
Can we go back to D&D? That was happy.
Positive, peppy. So.
These are all the rants that we would have had while we were gone.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to other things that we missed while we were gone. I just want to go on record as saying that moving sucks.
Oh, yes.
Every time it's tried. 100% of the time, moving sucks. I didn't want to spend my human capital by abusing my friends too much. I did abuse my friends. I had them all come over. I had about 8 guys and 5 trucks, and it was awesome. Come over on the hottest day Georgia has had in 2016. Up to and beyond. It's the hottest day. Sorry, guys. But I didn't want to abuse that capital, so everything that I could move myself, everything that I was physically, humanly capable of moving myself, I did prior to that day.
Mm-hmm.
That means for 3 weeks, I moved boxes. I would go to work. I'd leave the house at 6:30 in the morning. I'd come back at 5 or 6, between 5:30 and 6:30 in the evening. I would change out of my tie and put on some jeans, and I would take truckloads of boxes over. Mm-hmm. This was my life for 3.5 weeks. This was all I did. I did one. I would tell the kids, your job is to have 1 truckload of stuff for me when I get back. Whatever else you do, you can, I don't want to totally ruin your summer, right? But you've got to have a truckload for me. and then on Fridays or Saturdays and Sundays, we got to have more. So sometimes if I was able to get off a little early, I would do more. But that's what I did. So I moved 5 people worth of stuff myself. My wife helped, so it wasn't entirely me, but I did most of it. And all the furniture that 2 or 3 of us could carry, we did. So when the guys got here that hottest day of the year, all we had were the king-size bed upstairs that's made out of solid oak, a couple of dressers that are really heavy, the dining room table that's 8 feet of oak, that sort of stuff. The really heavy stuff. Everything else I'd already done. And my studio panels, which, you guys remember when I built the Pod, right? I built these things out of 8 foot by 4 foot by 6 inch, 3/4 inch plywood on 2x6 studs, filled as full as I could get it with soundproofing insulation. Each one of those weighs about 500 pounds. And the worst thing about that was not only did I have 10 of them, so I had 5,000 pounds, 2.5 tons of stuff to move, but I have no use for them here, and so we literally carried them out in my backyard and dumped them off in the backyard. They're trash. I abused these guys to carry 2.5 tons of trash because I didn't have any other place to do. I couldn't leave it there, right? I couldn't just leave it in the rental, and I don't have any place here to store. So they're out in my backyard, getting rained on, getting ruined. The wood is rotting. I'll go out there someday with a chainsaw and just hack them up into small enough pieces to put in the trash. But if anything, that's what I felt the worst about, was abusing these people to carry my trash. But they were stand-up guys. They all did it, and I bought them pizza, and I will buy them a steak later. But I got to say, the last time I moved, before this one, right? The last one was, from Texas to Georgia, and you can't do that in the back of a pickup. So I had to hire guys, and it cost me nearly $20,000 when it was all said and done. It was very expensive. But so then I didn't do all the packing. The last time I did that before that was 1999. I was a lot younger and was a lot stronger. And I was reminded of, if you've seen the movie Wedding Singer, the old guy punches the dude out, and he just looked at him like, "What are you doing?" The old guy says, "I used to be a lot stronger." I would go to pick something up and say, "Oh, I used to be a lot stronger." It was 3 weeks ago yesterday that this move was done, and I'm still not. Yeah, I'm still not physically recovered from 3 weeks ago. My body still hurts. I have tennis elbow. I have tendonitis in my elbow from repeatedly lifting boxes. So all of that to say, moving sucks. It sucks worse when you get old.
Which is why the big purge at my house has started from our move to this house. I honestly say that I think everyone should do a big purge of your house at least once a year.
Yeah, and ideally you would do that before the move, but because of our compressed time scale, we had to just pack the stuff that we knew we were just going to throw away. We knew it, but we didn't have time to sort it all out.
Yeah, that's the times that you hate it. You're just like, this is just going to go straight to the trash when I get to the new place.
Yeah.
Ugh.
At least you didn't have 2.5 tons of trash.
No, but I have to see that the sad thing is I have to daisy chain my purgings out because I have to share a garbage can with the neighbors. We have those big bins.
Right.
So I don't want to be that neighbor that fills up the bins every weekend.
Yeah.
So I there's 3 of them in the back in the alley that goes for the whole block, and so I'll end up going out there and putting a half a bag or a bag in each one once a weekend for my stuff from the home business that I had to close, because it's all stuff I'll never ever use again. Some of the things I'm keeping, fish wire, fish sticks, all that other stuff, but the buckets and buckets of just metal frames, it's gone. It's amazing.
So while we were away, while I was enduring that misery, Seth, you had both good news and bad news, and I'll let you attack those in whatever order you want to.
Yeah, my mom, she was pretty old, and then there was like a 3-week period where she was like got violently ill at home, throwing up and stuff. And we had to take her to the hospital, and the last time, there was a lot of stuff, but one of the things they found was cancer. But when they did the chemo, that made her sick, and so her body was shutting down. She had like dementia and some wounds that had never properly healed, and she actually died. I guess it's been about a month ago she passed away, and so that was not fun. And I had a car wreck. My car got totaled, and so I had to buy a new car. But at least I had good enough credit to get 0% APR. So that's good about that. So yeah, I will be glad when this summer is over, because it's not been a fun and like it was kind of one of those funny sad moments. The podcast that we had recorded, and I had said in there, I know this is going to be the greatest week ever, and
Yes.
that was the week my mom had died. So I was like, damn, that kind of sucks. But life goes on. She was old, and and for the last little bit, in a lot of ways, that wasn't my mom anymore. But up until the day she died, she was, would respond, and you could tell. But then that last day, you could tell something was wrong, and she was just like, just literally her body was just shutting down. And I came downstairs to I just look at her, make sure she's okay. I realized she wasn't breathing. And so then I got Dad, and I told everybody else, and we called hospice, because we had hospice set up. So we had bought like an portable AC unit, one of those air purifiers, and they had set up a bed and all that in the front room. And I got to see my brothers. All four of us were around at one time, and the last time that it happened was when my grandma died. That's been about 8 years ago. So it was cool to see all of us at once. And but yeah, so, and I found out, like, we had the funeral on a Tuesday and the burial on a Wednesday, or it might have been a Wednesday and Thursday. I found out at the luncheon after the funeral that I was doing the graveside service, so that was fun. It was a very short graveside service because I couldn't manage much more than that. But yeah, so not the best of summer in the Anderson household this year.
Yeah.
But she's not suffering anymore, so that's good.
So it's one of those things. The dumbest thing you can say is also the only thing you can say. I'm sorry for your loss.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all you can say, and it's also ridiculous and pointless. But that in the time that we went away, she got really sick, and now she's no longer sick. So
right.
I also lost one of my very good friends to cancer in that same time that we were away, and went back to Texas for a funeral. So it was, in many ways, it was kind of the summer of suck, and we're glad to be back. And I think maybe don't ever tie a goat to a tree. Don't ever stop podcasting, because when you stop podcasting, all of a sudden bad things happen.
Yeah, I guess even if I have to do one by myself, I'll never stop again.
To paraphrase Dory, just keep casting, casting. I'm probably gonna get a letter from Pixar for that.
Well, you paraphrased.
Whatever.
So I hate to end on a sad note like that, but that's I also don't want to go straight to trivialize anything like that. So again, Seth, I know I speak for there are thousands of people out there who are hurting with you right now over that loss, and I don't know what comfort that brings, but I know that it's true, and I'm sure that once this airs, you'll hear from people who are grieving with you.
Yeah. And what do you say to that? Thanks.
Right.
It just doesn't. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Funerals and death in general, it's when people say stupid things because there's no other good thing to say.
Yeah.
And also because it's almost a taboo subject,
right,
in our culture. At least in the American culture. I'm sure in other cultures that are more open and still have a concept of a family that hasn't been beaten out of them, that it's not as bad. But death, major illness, sickness, passing, and recovery of grief, those are, there's not much that will offend people in America anymore, but talking about those things sure does. So, so consequently, we don't know how to. It's hard anyway,
right,
and we don't know how. So of course, everything sucks.
And that's the sort of the curse of great blessing. We live in a culture where most people live into their 60s. Your mom lived a long life, right? And we live in a culture where people don't die all around us all day every day. It's the curse of a blessing. The blessing is that people in America live a good life for a long time. And the curse of that is we don't know how to deal with death well. And I think I'll take that. I think I'll take the flip side of that coin. In that, go back 300 years, the Jamestown colony is dying at a rate of 90%. Those people knew how to deal with death. That's a small consolation to what you have to do to know how to deal with death.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Sorry to go all philosophical on you like that. But
I tell you what, Mark. Before you end, let's at least do this week in history.
well, that's where I was going. So yeah.
Okay.
I actually had a nice smooth transition. But Seth, what happened this week in history?
Okay, this is really cool, and it ties in. I got to read a little bit because all this stuff was awesome. So this week in history, July the 7th, 1752, Joseph Marie Jacquard, or however you say that in French, was born. She was the inventor of the Jacquard loom and was born in France. This pioneered the use of punched cards to give instructions to a machine, in this case a loom weaving rugs and linens. Herman Hollerith latched onto this punch card technique for his machines that calculated the U.S. Census in the latter parts of the 19th century, and the first several decades of computers continued to utilize punch cards for programming. And I found this cool tidbit on the census.gov. Hollerith followed this guy to the 1880 census, where he worked as a statistician. It was from this experience during the processing of that census that Hollerith realized the need for a better way to count results. And so I'm going to skip down here. Hollerith sees the idea of punch cards, designing a machine that used the location of holes on each card to tally not only overall numbers but also individual characteristics. He tested his new machine in Baltimore in 1887. The same year, the hand-counted 1880 census was finally completed, and he was successful enough that he won a contract for the census office when it reopened in 1890. So before punch cards, the precursor of computers, it took 7 years to hand count what was only tens of millions of people at that point. And then, like in 1990, the whole process was completed in just a couple of years. So, thank you, Herman Hollerith. Thank you, awesome French person who I don't want to butcher your name again. She was born this week in history in 1752. So just because computers are new, they built upon a process. Somebody didn't just wake up one day and come up with the idea of an integrated circuit. They existed because of vacuum tubes, because of transistors, because of diodes, all these things all the way back, to punch cards and other things that even preceded them. It's amazing. You don't notice it at the time. I watched a movie this week. It's an awesome movie in the history of American cinema called Sunset Boulevard. First time I'd ever seen it all the way through. Wow, has cinema changed in 65 years. It was a great movie at the time, but everything in it now was so old and that's not a plot twist. Everybody knows about that. But it was so quiet during the movie. There wasn't this score for the entire time.
No dubstep.
We're at cinema today. Yeah, we're at cinema today because movies like this were made, and those were made because of the silent pictures, because of the other things. So, just because we have these awesome computers today, they only existed because stuff like this came before. And so this week in history, we celebrate the birth of an early computing pioneer who I'd never heard about. I heard all about Herman in my 8th grade computer literacy class, but I've never heard of this person.
I do want to say, before we get too far on, Joseph Marie Jacquard is a male.
It is a male? Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
In France, Marie is not necessarily a female name, especially when it follows Joseph. So if you Google that name, you definitely see a picture of an old dude. So people were, those of you who've started writing emails, you can stop it now. So those of you who've already hit enter on it, you owe Seth an apology. So go ahead and send that now.
That's okay.
He made an honest mistake. I do want to say I just recently, over the break probably, have been introducing my children and reintroducing myself to the original Star Trek series.
That's a good series.
And one of the things that I noticed, like you, Seth, is so just television then was so different. There's 12-second reaction shots when somebody says something, and you get that tight light that Roddenberry liked to use right around the raccoon eyes, and it's just Spock just standing there staring at the screen for 11, 12, 13 seconds, and then a music hit, and then there'll be 7 or 8 seconds of a guy just walking into a room with no dialogue, no music. That doesn't happen in modern television. Everything, there's a hit every 2 or 3 seconds at the most. It's either you don't show a guy walking into a room and then delivering a line. He delivers the line while he moves, or there's music while he's walking, or there's a voiceover while he's walking. And when you watch that, the pace is so slow and so labored is how it feels to an audience today. And when you complain about modern people having no attention span, has media adapted to us, or has media created us? I don't know which.
Yes.
But it's obvious when you look at the older stuff, and we're talking 1967. Somebody's going to excoriate me for not knowing that. So this was the 60s. 50 years ago was not a million years ago. So everything has changed to the point now where when I'm watching this, it is actually difficult for me. I feel a sense of, well, let me check Twitter. Let me look at my phone, because there's like 5 seconds that have gone by without input, and my wife didn't even notice it, and my kids didn't notice it, and I started pointing it out. So look how long that shot just stayed on Kirk, not saying anything, no music hit, just that shot on him reacting to something that he saw or something somebody said, and that's the way I watch media. I watch movies and television with the mind of a director, and with looking at how it's put together. I'm a storyteller at heart, so I look at how the story is told, and it's just amazing to me. And Seth, like you said in that movie, how differently we tell stories today. And I'm not sure that it's better or worse, right? But when I went to see Secret Life of Pets, that was a 2-ish hour movie, and there was not 5 seconds of silence in the whole movie ever. There just wasn't. There was always a hit. Yep. And so, today that's what we expect. And how much tighter do you get? Do we, in 20 years, 50 years, do we not even finish sentences anymore? I don't know. Just like in 1962, they couldn't imagine what, Daredevil on Netflix was going to look like today. You can't imagine it because you're not there. But it is definitely, it's a very different culture we live in today.
Yeah, dude, I was listening to one of my podcasts, and I've kind of topped out at 2.3x speed.
Me too.
This person was talking, and they were mentioning the name of a website, and I couldn't pick it up. And listening to this person, I thought, man, she is one of those intelligent, fast-talking, rapid-fire people. And so I popped it down to 1.0 so I could listen to her.
And everybody sounds like they're drunk.
Slow as heck. I was just like, oh my gosh, my mental picture of that person was totally shattered because I heard their voice in real time. So I got the name of the website I was looking for, and I immediately punched it back up to 2.3 because, somebody who sounded like because most financial people are fast talkers. It's not that they're out to swindle you. It's just like they're used to dealing with a lot of information in a short time period. They got to get you the facts and all the facts because the facts have changed from the time they started talking. But she made me seem like a fast talker listening. And and everybody who listens to this podcast knows how slow I talk on a regular basis. But it was amazing just listening to somebody at regular speed versus 2.3. The mental perception is totally different. At least it was for me, and I was just like, "Wow, I can't." My perception of that person has changed now. So
it's such a funny adjustment your brain makes too. I have no trouble when I'm listening to you now. You sound perfectly normal. That's Seth. That's right. The way Seth talks. When I listen to you on a podcast, you sound like you're a brain dead drunk. And it's the same person, it's just the context. Yeah. And if I'm listening, I've got my earbud in and I'm listening, and I'm at 2.4, 2.5x, somewhere around there. I had a hard time getting past that 2.3 myself. And at some point I just decided to stop trying. Why make it harder? But anyway, maybe there's some sort of physical mental limit there. But if somebody walks up to me and starts talking normally, they don't sound odd. And the guy in my ear talking at 2.3x doesn't sound odd either. They both sound perfectly normal to me in their various contexts. But I think what gets me, Seth, is you now, it's a different context. This is live. And so you sound perfectly normal. When I stick that earbud in my ear and I listen to you, you sound like you've had brain damage. You really do. And it's an interesting thing that perception, the whole dynamic, the way my brain frames things is different on a podcast versus in reality. And I don't think I could watch a TV show at 2.3x. I've never tried it, but I don't think I could.
It'd be interesting to try.
Well, that was a nice tangent. I like those tangents that go on like that. So I think I'm going to say that we're pretty much done here. So this is the part of the show where you tell it. I expected to get lots of feedback over the 6 weeks that we were gone. We got a couple of emails. Come on, just because we took a break doesn't mean you could take a break. Come on, people. Step it up there. But go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page, fill out the form, answer the world's hardest CAPTCHA, and send that to us, or send an email to geekrant@elementop.com. Or if you'd like to hear your voice right alongside ours at 2.3x, you can dial 559-IM-OPI and leave your voicemail there. I do want to do another plug for the Castback app. Excuse me, the Castback app that started out as the Everyday Linux app, that started out as me whining on Mike. If you haven't checked it out in a while, do. It is super polished. And one of the things that I've been talking with Kaser about is just for that thing, there are certain podcasts that I listen to that have a high call-in rate. A lot of people are calling in, and that audio quality is so much lower, it's hard to listen at that rate. Or somebody with a Australian accent, I have a hard time doing at that rate. So we're going to be introducing, and when I say we, I mentioned it and he did all the work. We're going to be introducing per feed settings. So you can have a global setting of 2.3, and you can say, on this feed, give me 1.7, and then while you're playing the show itself, you can slide up and down for that show. So we're going to have 3 levels of speed, so that if you know this particular podcast I have a hard time listening to at that speed, you can set a speed for just that. He's also recently introduced server-side syncing, so not only your playlist, but also your progress, so you can move from Android device to Android device and pick up where you left off. So there's a lot of new features if you haven't checked it out in a while. The Castback, Castback, check it out in the Android App Store. You won't be sorry that you did. It's still beta, but it's like the best beta I've ever used. Aside from I just blanked a Fog. Fog is the best beta I've ever used. But Castback is the second best beta I've ever used. Now, Seth, what do you have for us for your show closing spectacular?
Okay. Well, since we're kind of going back in time and picking up stuff that happened while we were gone, I figured I would link people to the oldest written song ever found. So clay tablets excavated in the Syrian city of appear to be the oldest known example of sheet music ever discovered. The tablets date back to roughly 14,000 BC and contain an entire hymn written as tribute to one of the moon god's wives, or the moon god's wife. And so the reason I chose this website on Goliath is because embedded is the YouTube of, like, they translated it and somebody actually played it. So give it a cool, it's not Bach or Beethoven or, Led Zeppelin or Metallica, but we wouldn't have those people unless stuff like this had happened, what would that be, 3,500 years ago. So again, the music we have today is a direct descendant of stuff like this. So anyway, that's something really cool and interesting and give it a listen. It's not like it's different, definitely different than anything that would be considered music from this millennium or last.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Some expert, I guess, would have had to know what that means. How did they convert that to modern day music? Somebody knew something, I guess. But
yeah, well, it took over a decade of research for this professor of Assyriology to be able to transcribe it. So, they didn't just like find it and type it into Google and see an instant translation. But it's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right, cool stuff, guys. I think this was a decent show for the first one back. It was definitely better than the one that we missed. 100% better.
Or at least 33% better.
Yes. So let us know what you think over at elementop.com, and we'll see you next time, because that ends it for this episode of the GeekRant.
Toodles.
Oh, and I got to open it. It's so hot in here. Of course, I think I'm opening the door to the heat, so I don't know that that'll help anything. But can you see me just turning red and sweating more as it's now up to 83 degrees in here.
Wow. You're melting, Mark. You're melting.
Yeah. Wine. Okay, so a couple of YouTube people come and watched us, so thanks for that, but you're all gone now, so it doesn't matter. But those of you who are watching after the fact, hey, let me know how the new bandwidth worked out. It seemed better from my end. Seth was still a little breaky-uppy, but I seem to be broadcasting better. I paid for 20 megs up just so that I could do better at podcasting. So let me know how it worked. But we'll see you later.